Could U.S. politics return to pre-2016 bipartisan stability in the next few years? When I was talking to an older family member about the current state of politics, she compared it to the divisions over the Vietnam War, saying it's a pendulum that swings back and forth over time. Do you guys think these left-right-wing fringe movements, i.e. MAGA and so forth, will eventually die out and things will return back to normal? We didn't have bipartisan stability before 2016. I'm 40. Over the course of my life, our national politics have only gotten worse and were really accelerated after 9/11. I am skeptical of any assessment of politics that treats it like a matter of physics. It's really not subject to anything like that. It's about power. Who has power? And what they do with power. I somehow doubt it. I thought when the pandemic occurred, we would band together. Unfortunately, it just generated more partisanship. I agree with someone else in this thread who mentioned technology. I am not sure if bipartisanship can survive because of digital media, self-sorting largely guided by technology, and gerrymandering using technology. Basically, we need some form of mixing of views and discussions. This can be done with technology. Unfortunately, being confronted with opposing points of view and engaging with them in meaningful ways generates less engagement and will not likely be embraced by big tech. You have to go back to the era before Newt. The Democrats were in control from 1954 to 1994. The core issue with the partisan divide is gerrymandering. As seats become increasingly safe from the other party, the only remaining threat to losing your seat is from within the party. That means the true election is frequently the primary, which much fewer and more radical people tend to vote in. The result is politicians who skew further and further to the extremes. The true fix for this issue would be to implement a voting system that cannot be gerrymandered. Only if people stop counting on others to do it for them and vote out the extremists and quit playing the both sides game. That game is played out and obviously based in false assumptions. As others have said, 2016 wasn't when the hyper-partisan politics started. I think it really ramped up with Newt G. and Reagan. Their Dems are evil. No compromise. Take my football and go home attitudes gave birth to the Tea Party movement and people like Sarah Palin becoming popular. Social media, conspiracy theories and rabid evangelical folks were all accelerants. It will continue to get worse up until the point the fascist takeover attempt happens. January 6th was the practice run, and then we'll be in a hot civil war as opposed to the cold one we're in now. The Republican Party cannot be saved. There is no path to stability, let alone bipartisan stability, without a destruction and replacement of the Republican Party. Like the Whigs, the Republicans needs to split into a nativist and a more mainstream party who cares about the future. At that point the nativists can be fully sidelined and the forward-thinking split can start competing for voters and interest groups against the Democrats. Only through an attempt to compete for voters can the incentives be realigned to support bipartisanship. You'd really like to go back to the era of bipartisanship where the Republicans declared their number one goal was to make Obama a one-term president, risked economic collapse just to make him look bad, and finally determined that presidents don't get to make Supreme Court appointments if they're a Democrat and black. That's like saying the monstrous crimes of the prior administration retroactively make Nixon a just and reasonable president. Words just don't work that way. There have only been rare and brief periods of true bipartisanship. From 2008 to 2016, the Republicans flat out refused to work with the Democrats, not even allowing a vote on his nominee for the Supreme Court. It goes way back, to the signing of the Constitution, and the 3-5 compromise among other atrocities. Watch Hamilton. He got shot by the VP, Aaron Burr, a member of his own party. As soon as Trump is fully out of the picture, I think it will help a lot of things. Hopefully the crazy, loudmouth MAGA members will be voted out too and we can have a somewhat civil government again. Anyone who thinks the United States ever had bipartisan stability is deluding themselves. It'll be interesting to see what happens when Trump leaves the political scene. It's possible that once he's gone, the populist movement he fueled may recede and some semblance of normalcy will be restored. I fully expect significant realignments in the coming years. Perhaps even one or two new major political parties that truly reflect the divisions in American politics. Attacks on Bill Clinton were vicious. Gore probably won Florida. The lies prior Iraq invasion were blatant. And war crimes normalized waterboarding. Dems conspired against Bernie. Trump won and people start floating the idea of unfaithful electors. 4 years later it was Trump's turn to consider unfaithful electors. Dude. Watching as a foreigner from afar. It's been always a shit show. Edit the SCOTUS stolen from Obama. I'm 54 and worked in politics from 1989 through 2016 at the local, state and national level. During that time, fringe left and right have always existed and always held disproportionate influence because the fringe tends to attract activists. It's also always been tit for tat, nasty, petty, and polarized, except for a brief period following 9/11. That said, it's also always followed a cycle: fringe gets power, governs idiotically, gets replaced. So yeah, things will shift. There will be a short period of harmony. Then morons on the left or right will seize power, prove they don't deserve it, and the cycle will refresh. My town is showing promise. We have a batshit crazy MAGA versus a traditional conservative for mayor. The backlash against the MAGA candidate has been strong. It's the darkest possible timeline. The sooner you accept it, the less you'll hurt trying to reconcile what ought to be with reality. The thing is that the technological context has radically changed the landscape, permanently killing bipartisanism in general. Probably not. The Republican Party has too many disparate ideologies to remain a cohesive political party. It's almost fated to split into a MAGA party and a conservative party, leaving Dems as the only major party left in America. And given the younger generation's tendency to vote Dem, it may well be we live under Dem rules for quite a while. What I see happening in the next few years is the fall of the Republican Party. Unless Trump can win in 2024, which is still entirely possible. If that happens, it's the end of the American experiment. He'll replace all the bureaucrats with Trump loyalists and he'll steal the 2028 election, and the GOP will rule the U.S. as a Trump dictatorship. If the GOP loses big in 2024, there's no coming back. The party will dissolve, split between Trump loyalists and Republicans loyal to the GOP establishment. The Democrats will rule unopposed for a few election cycles until something rises out of the ashes of the GOP that can beat them. If the red capitalists stop being fascists, sure, then both parties will go back to agreeing about the core issues and the Democrats will continue to fail on purpose when a policy would benefit its voters to the detriment of its donors. Oh, the bipartisan stability that Glitch McConnell offered Obama? Was I asleep, or was his agenda to screw our president at every turn? Listen to me now and hear me later. Nope, not going to happen. Why? Because there really isn't two parties. There's one large party with a left and a right wing. They know how to manipulate us and make us hate each other while they stay in power. It's a big club and you ain't in it, George Carlin.